Counter-Strike has a lot of young and up-and-coming players, and honestly, there's so many of them that I can't really get to them and make prospects videos for all of them. I need to filter out which ones are actually worth it, which ones are the best, which ones are just, kind of fragging out on a mediocre team and need a little more time to develop. So I've decided to make that sort of filtering process into a video. I've got 4 demos from 4 different young players who had some pretty nice stats, some pretty nice performances, and we're going to take a look and see if we find anything really interesting. See which players are still very rusty, which players have a lot of potential, and which ones are just kind of in between. Let's kick it off with Nilo of Young Ninjas. Now, the Young Ninjas Academy, the NIP Academy, has produced a fair few well-rounded, well-coached players. Think Linus and ZTR. These guys who are capable of having a role in Tier 1 side, but ultimately always lacked the firepower to really be a Tier 1 player. It's surprising, because a lot of players, you'll see them really be hyper-skilled, can headshot like the best of them, but then don't make the right decisions, don't make the right plays, and ZTR is a great example of the complete opposite. He came out of that academy looking polished, but not looking dangerous. And I think Nilo is a great exception to this. I saw a lot of nice things from Nilo in this demo in terms of those fundamentals, but I also quite importantly saw a legitimate fragger. There were rounds where he found frantic frags in the chaos, like this round where he begins with a deagle, upgrades with a nice headshot, and then ends up winning a 1v2 with a Galil. Showing some versatility, but also showing a lot of explosiveness. But then he also displayed more control when it was needed. This manifested in the large number of rounds he was holding areas from aggression. You see here he's challenged by the push, he gets the frag, stays alive, creates a massive advantage for his team, and ultimately gives them a great platform to kick on from and win rounds. One of my few qualms I have with Nilo right now is his feel for the game, as a lot of his pushes or lurks really fell flat. Now, he's not quite got that instinctive read of the game yet, his timing's just off, maybe he's not prepped these opponents well enough, Tier 2 this happens, but I think overall it's more just a question of his feeling on his timing, on when he can make these pushes and when he can't. This is only one demo though, so perhaps he shows better things than others. But for this one, we have to say, yeah, this was a bit of an issue. Him dying for free isn't ideal. All in all, he's a tidy little player with plenty of current and future upside. I'd give this demo, just by itself, an A. Now, moving on to a player who's, well, if you've heard of him, you're some HLTV Tier 4 lurker motherfucker. You're like me, you're watching any game you can get your hands on. And this is Ryujin. He plays for a team called Arc Red, and honestly, this was one of the most painful demos I've had to sit through. Now, this team plays incredibly sloppy CS, over-facing, embracing the chaos, and Ryujin isn't the root cause of this. He's a part of it, but he's not obviously the root cause. But yeah, there's a lot of sloppy things I saw that really left a bad taste in my mouth, let's be honest, and let's dive into it. Let's start with some good stuff. Now, there are a few rounds that stood out for him individually, he got some nice frags, some multi-kills, but overall his mechanics didn't seem incredibly special. I didn't see that sort of robotic, unnervingly smooth crosshair placement you see from some players, and I also didn't see too many of those crazy flicks you see from the other extremity. We didn't really get any of that sort of spectacular mechanical ability on display. He's definitely a skilled player, you saw some good stuff, he can aim for the head, he can react really quickly, he's still a young fragger in that sort of way, but nothing outstanding. On the other side of things though, we got a lot of things to talk about. His decision making and fight management at times were quite sloppy, the way he positioned himself, the way he made his decisions to when to aggress, when to re-aggress, when to face. A lot of this stuff was, subpar. Really subpar. We saw a lot of missed utility from this team in general, but also from himself. Some of these flashes are thrown just improperly. This is not how you're supposed to flash off these angles. His utility usage, really unremarkable. So, Ryujin has a lot to work on. At least the skill is there. That's always the big issue. A player that has very limited skills and shows off the kind of sloppiness, obviously, we're just going to throw away immediately, but he's not that guy. He's not immediately going in the dumpster. Now, the demo itself, I can only give it a C. And that's being generous, maybe a C-, because this is not great play, not from himself, not from his team, and then he doesn't do enough to really distinguish himself, so I can only give it a C-. This is not a player I would typically move forward with in prospects. I think there's probably a good 6 to 12 months of development really required before we even realistically consider him, and hopefully in that time he gets himself to a team with, structured coaching, things like that, to really help improve him and honestly his teammates' games, because honestly some of the other players do look like they could be decent individuals too. It's just there's a lot of things missing. Hopefully in the CS/Russian scene here they can find a spot, they can show off their skills a little better, polish themselves, round themselves off as players, and then we'll talk about them. Before we get into the third one, like and sub, it always helps. Leave a comment to help the engagement. And yeah, let's talk about this guy, because I mentioned him in a comment. Someone asked me if I had anyone lined up for prospects, and I was like, this guy's probably on my list. Now, he ended up not making a video yet, because honestly, I hadn't taken the time to actually go look in the demos. I just knew the numbers were crazy, and when I'd watched his games on stream, I'd noticed some crazy stuff. But this is Jimpphat. He is a classy little rifler with all the trademark signs of a potential star fragger in the tier 1 scenes on display. Now, everything about him is complete. Like, he has the crosshair placement, he has the spray control, he has the flicks, he has everything you'd really want from a star rifler right now. In this demo, not only is Jimpphat hitting some incredible shots, but he's absolutely outmaneuvering his opposition. Like, he just seems like cerebral in certain scenarios where you don't expect a 16-year-old to be. There are also telltale signs of, well, really, Mouse's excellent coaching. They always do a great job of this, developing their players, allowing them to become really tier 1 level kind of guys, rather than just nutjob fraggers. On his T side, Jimpphat defaults in lobby, and he does everything with a purpose. I mean, he's setting up a veil of mystery surrounding his team's actual intentions, and he's doing this solo. He's alluding to ramp, he's using his molly there, using a nade and a smoke to constantly create mystery at squeaky door. I mean, this is just textbook. He can, at any given moment, lead and execute through that ramp utility to take that space, or he could be lurking by himself out of door. I mean, he never really does it. The only time he does it is with pace, with some flashbangs, he goes out door, but he's always creating the idea that in their heads, maybe he's there. So honestly, textbook default, really well played. I also love the fact that he's dumping his util early, then taking point. Something we see too often is baiting in these scenarios where the wrong player's going first. The player who's used his utility should be leading the way, and Jimpphat's excellent in these scenarios where you really set him up to go out, get those frags after he's dumped that util. Truly textbook T-side play all in all. This demo honestly left an amazing first impression with me. For someone this young to have this level of polish, consistency, skill, everything that you'd want to be there is there. This demo is S tier. There is nothing you can really see beyond this from a player playing in tier 2. He's supposed to be an Academy League player. I mean, what the hell is that? How is he this good? Outstanding. Let's round things off with, well, not a player many people have heard of, not a player many people would expect, but that's the point of this. I go digging deep for these demos. It's Azuwu. Now, UKCS really is up right now. It's peaking. We've never had this much success in the UK scene, and it's crazy. So I decided to go diving deep, see if there's anyone else coming through the ranks. And Azuwu on Coalesce, he's not facing the craziest level of opposition, and I do have to factor that in a little bit, but I found many things to praise. Of course, he has nice aim, but it's really controlled and clean. It's not erratic in any way. His crosshair placement rivals some of the finest I've seen. His utility usage is purposeful and intentional, both in the early defaults and the mid to late rounds. I think I rarely saw a piece of utility get thrown away, and for a guy who's constantly battling at ramp, trying to create opportunities for himself, that's really impressive. Azuwu didn't have too many insane rounds, but he did have a lot of fundamentally well-played rounds, and he's just grabbing 1-2 kills, not dying for nothing, constantly doing the right thing, which is more than enough, and more than makes up for not having any crazy rounds. I mean, sure, for a one demo review, I can't say he's officially the most cracked, undeniably insane god tier player, because there wasn't any round that really showed that. But what there was shit tons of evidence that he's just good, and we'll take that any day of the week. If he keeps on this kind of track, he'll be involved in next year's June-July sort of rumour mill as the roster locks approach. He really is impressing me, so I'm going to give the demo grade, I can't quite give him as good a grade as I gave Nilo. I don't think he's an A yet. I think there's still some stuff to work on. I think a few more wrinkles to add into the way he's taking T-side space and the way he's challenging on the CT side. It did get a little one note, so I think there is some stuff to work on. But all in all, great little start. Good first impression. B+. Right, if you enjoyed, you know what to do. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.